Hilchas Eidus Perik Shmini. Now we learned that when a person wants to be Mekayim a shtar, so it can be done either by bringing Eidim that recognize the signature, so you have two Eidim on each signature that recognizes these signatures, or if the original Eidim that actually signed the shtar come and say, each one says Zek Savyodi, and Zek Savyodi, let's say Reuven and Shimon signed on the shtar. Reuven comes and says Zek Savyodi, and Shimon says Zek Savyodi, that's also enough. And then you don't need two Eidim on each signature. Each Eid comes along and says, this is my signature. So here the Rambam is going to say that when two Eidim come along and each one says, this is my signature, so basically he's not really saying Eidus about the signature, he's saying Eidus about the shtar. He's saying, Eidus, this is my signature and this shtar is a true shtar. So when can he do that? Only if he actually remembers the shtar. But if he doesn't remember the shtar, he just recognizes his signature, so then he can't say Eidus on the shtar. They're saying Eidus Zek Savyodi only works if he also remembers the shtar. But if he doesn't remember the shtar, so then he cannot say Zek Savyodi. Let's learn inside. Peirik Shmini. Mi shechosem al shtar. And now ubo lohoyed al ksav yodi bebezin. V'hikir ksav yodi shezehu bavad. He's for sure that this is his ksav yad. Avol einei zeicher Eidus klal. He doesn't remember the Eidus. This whole idea that Reuven, that someone borrowed, that there was a Malva and a Levi, these two people, this was the Malva, this was the Levi, he lent the money, he doesn't remember this at all. So the din is, this person cannot come along in Bezdin and say Eidus about his Ksav Yad. When a person comes along and says, this is my Ksav Yad, in reality what he's saying Eidus is not about the Ksav Yad. Ella la mamish b'shtaru meit shezeh chayiv lezeh uksav yodei is only kedei laskiri adover aval mlei nisker liyoid. So it doesn't help that he should say zeh ksav yodei unless he actually remembers the Haggadah Eidus. Now l'chure, if in the case where there's one aid saying zeh ksav yodei, the other is saying zeh ksav yodei, so say l'chure, how could one person be believed zeh ksav yodei? So the answer is because he's not saying Zek Ksav Yodi. He's saying I'm Zek Ksav Yodi and I said Eidus and Bezdin. So mainly we have two Eidim on the shtar. We have two Eidim not on the Ksav Yad, more on the shtar. Masha'enken, if he doesn't remember the shtar, so then we don't have two Eidim on the shtar. We only have one Eid on the Ksav Yad, one Eid on the Ksav Yad. But l'chur, in a case l'moshel, if you have, let's say Reuven and Shimon signed on the shtar. Reuven is saying this is my Ksav Yad. Shimon is saying this is my Ksav Yad. And now Reuven is also saying this is Shimon's Ksav Yad, and Shimon is saying that I recognize Reuven's Ksav Yad. So b'chiyai gavna, there's two Eidim on each Ksav. One of them is Taka, the person that actually signed. And we said before, a Karev can say Eidus about a Ksav Yad because he's not saying Eidus about himself anything. He's saying Eidus about the Ksav Yad. So l'chur over here, why shouldn't it work in a case? In other words, we're asking a Shaila. This is a Shaila Shach asks that l'chur Einochinami, when there's two Eidus, one says Zek Ksav Yodi, one says Zek Ksav Yodi, so then it's Pasha that if they don't remember the story, they're not Eidus. Because there can't be Eidus on the Ksav Yad, because there's no two Eidus on the Ksav Yad. And Elam might be Eidus on the shtar, they don't remember the shtar, so they can't be Eidus on the shtar. But in the case we have two Eidus on each Ksav Yad, but one of those Eidus is the person himself, so why shouldn't that work? So perhaps there's those people that think that maybe it does work. The Shach and the Siddur they Naman B'Pshitus, it doesn't work. The Pashas Lashon HaRambam that a person can't say Eidus about his Ksav Yad unless he remembers it. You have to understand this. The Pshat is because in the case where the Eidim themselves work, it could only work if they're saying Eidus about the shtar. In other words, the whole gather of a Kiyam HaShtar through the Eidim themselves is only by them saying Eidus about the shtar itself. That's a Kol Pam Shittas HaRambam. The way they learn Pshat, the Shach and others learn Pshat in the Rambam. That the only time a person can say a Eidus about his own Ksav Yad is only if he's saying Eidus about the actual shtar. Masha'enken, if he's not saying Eidus about the actual shtar, he's only saying Eidus about the Ksav Yad, even if someone else is Mitzaref, so he can become part of those set of Eidus, which is Mitzaref to speak about his Ksav Yad. He could only say it if he's saying about the shtar. But that's clear, the din of the Rambam. So again, when a person comes along and says Zek Ksav Yodi, so in order for that to work, it could only be if he remembers signing on the shtar. He remembers the story of the shtar, and he remembers signing on the shtar. So he's right now saying Eidus about that, about the shtar. Halacha beis. Now, echad hazecher se'eidus me'atzmei, ve'echad sheroa ksav yodei, esheizkiru acherim v'nisker. Either he remembers be'atzim, he remembers hazecher se'eidus be'atzmei, or even if he didn't remember the Eidus, but by seeing the ksav yad, or by someone else reminding him, that's also good. Vafkilu is kirei ha'id hasheni shehid imei, is im niskar and he's a maid, even though originally he didn't remember, but the other aid reminded him, or someone else reminded him, or by seeing the Ksaver reminded him. Either way, but Maskana he remembered, and therefore he could say Eidus. Aval, im iskire ha'tiveya atzmei, the tiveya, the person that's the malva in the shtar, he was the one that reminded the aid about this story. Aval pisha niskar, even though the pale after the tiveya mon by him, he did remember, Eini made. Why? It looks like he originally didn't know, and now the Teveya is mourning by him. The Teveya is mourning by him, and now he's saying, "Yeah, I remember." So it's not so clear that Itaka remembers. Be'eni Baldin, it looks like as if he's really just saying Eidus because this person told him. So if someone else told him, so we will assume if that person he didn't remember, he wouldn't have he wouldn't be made for him. But Mashiach, if the Teveya is telling him, don't you remember that I lent this person money? And he says, yeah, I remember. So Be'eni Baldin, it looks like as if Heidle B'Sheker B'Davish Yoda, and therefore they say that he's not Aval Miskira Teveya Atzmei, is Eini Meir can be made. Ulefichach, Im Hoya HaTiveya Talmud Chacham, if the Teveya was a Talmud Chacham, and v'hisker ha'tiveya hazeh so'ed v'niskar, so then is areze yoidle. Why? Because Talmud Chacham Yudea she'ilu lizochra hadova lo hoyameid. Now this din, you have to understand, this din is a din that says in the Gemara, but the question was pshat in the Gemara. The Rashi L'Moshe learns over there that it's talking about that the Eid is a Talmud Chacham, not the Teveya is a Talmud Chacham. Because if the Eid is a Talmud Chacham, so even though the Teveya reminded the aid, and therefore the aid remembered. So we say, since he's a Talmud Chacham, we can take for granted that if he wouldn't have Taka remembered, he wouldn't say Eidus. So then they gave the Tevei was a Talmud Chacham, they gave the aid was a Talmud Chacham. That's how Rashi learns. The Rambam learns that if the Tevei is a Talmud Chacham, so what's when he gave the Tevei as a Talmud Chacham? So from the Rambam, Loshna Rambam comes out that a Talmud Chacham, since the Tevei is a Talmud Chacham, he won't think that the aid is saying Eidus if he doesn't remember. It's not so clear to understand. Before the Rambam said, so the problem is that you shouldn't say Eidus if the Teveya tells you, it reminds you of it, and then you say Eidus because the Teveya is going to think, the Baldin is going to think, that's Kilu Heidlei B'Sheker B'Davish Yoda. Mashiach, if the Teveya is a Talmud Chacham, so then Teveya is a Talmud Chacham, so then he won't think that he's saying something which is not b'sheker. It's not so clear. Whereas the question is if this aid is saying Eidus that does remember, doesn't remember. The Tevei is Takat Talmud Chacham. He knows you're not supposed to Eidus if Lepeli doesn't remember. But Lav Dafke, he's convinced that the aid Taka remembers. So others learn, other Rishonim learn that the pshat is that if the Tevei is a Talmud Chacham, he won't. In other words, there won't be a concern that he's like. Sometimes when a person says, "Don't you remember?" and Lepel, like he's mourning from you to remember, so therefore the aid feels, so to speak, compelled to say that he remembers, because Lepel, he believes him that he said it, and he doesn't remember, so he's a little bit uncomfortable. Mashiach, the Tevez, the Talmud Chacham, so in the Tevez, the Talmud Chacham, he's not going to mourn, but if in Kazeh, that's going to mourn that the aid should remember, and that the aid should say that he remembers, because the Talmud Chacham knows that if the aid is not let us say Eidus if he doesn't remember. So basically he's going to ask the person in a way, he says, I remembered. I can tell you things to give simanim. It won't be like in a way that the aid is going to feel that the Talmud Chacham is mourning from him to say Eidus if he doesn't remember. So Mela, there's no such a concern. That would be like an easier way to understand. So we have three pshatim over here. We have the pshat of Rashi, which is easy to understand. That the pshat is if the aid is the Talmud Chacham, so he's not going to say it if he doesn't remember. We have the pshat of other Rishonim, even the pshat of the Tivei is the Talmud Chacham. But the word is that the Tivei is not going to try to convince the aid to, or mon by the aid to say, unless the aid knows. And knows the aid will feel that the Tivei is not mourning by him to say that he remembers Eidus if he doesn't really remember. And then there's a musig whether if the Tivei is a Talmud Chacham, so then the Tivei is not going to be convinced, is not going to think that the aid is saying it without really knowing it. That's l'chura de Lashon Rambam. He says, says, Leficha, let's read again inside. Leficha, Kim Hoya Tevei Talmud Chachamim, V'hisker Tevei Azeh Sa'ed, V'nisker is Areze Yoid Leish, Talmud Chacham Yidea, She'ilu Lizachar Adav Lehoya Meit. So Mela, there's no concern of what he said at the end of Halacha Beis, B'pnei Shezed Deime Be'eni Baldin, Ki Leheid Le B'Sheka B'Davish Le'Yoda. Then the Ram continues, V'kalu Shekilu B'Dinim Ominous, She'aval Pi Sheshochach Hadavar Mikan Hashamin, and V'aksav Hu She'eskiri Hadavar, is nevertheless Areze Meit. So this whole din that a person can remind himself Mitech Haksav is a kula b'neged din imamus. Normally, an aid to say Eidus, you have to remember. And the fact that something had to remind you is not enough for you to say Eidus. You have to remember yourself. Mashenke by din imamus, even if you didn't remember, the Ksav reminded you, someone reminded you, nevertheless you could say Eidus. Halacha Dalet. Hail Vadover came, that when Eidim come along and say the Ksav Yadeinu Zeh, and they don't remember the Eidus, that's not considered Eidus. Ishtar sheyotze lebezin, ubo Eidav Amru, Ksav Yadeinu Zeh, aval me'elam le'yodainu Eidus Zeh, ve'einonu zeichrim, shezeh lovim mizeh mocharlei. They don't remember the Eidus that says in the Shtar. So me'ela leinis kayim ashtar. The Shtar is leinis kayim. Vareu kecheres, some people say kecharoshim, ad sheyiskru Eidusam. So notice the Eidim that are on the Shtar don't really have a din of Eidim. No, since these Eidim are saying that they don't remember the Eidus, so therefore, and they're the ones that are being Mekayim the Shtar, so therefore it's not so clear what's this Lashon Areu Kecheresh. A Cheresh is Posel Eidus. So we're saying that it's Kilo like they would be Posel Eidus. Achi Yiskre Eidusim. If they'll remember their Eidus, so then they'll be Eidus. Masha'eker, until they remember their Eidus, it's considered like they're a Cheresh. There's some people that are Geras Kecheres, that the Shtar has a din of a Cheres. And v'chol mi she'inadon kazeh liyode b'dinim ominous ben yemini l'smeili. So that's this din. So when they come along and they say Ksav Yadeinu Zeh, Aval, we don't remember it, so therefore it's not considered a kiyum. And the Rambam adds v'hareu kecheres ad sheyiskru Eidus. Now Aval im hoye Ksav Yodin yetzim mokim acher. This is talking about that there's no kiyum on this Shtar. In other words, there's no kiyum on the Shtar. They're the ones that are being mekayim the Shtar, and they're saying they don't remember, so therefore it's not a kiyum. There was another way of being Mekayim Ashtar without them, is Mekayim Nis Ashtar. So then you are Mekayim the Shtar. The fact that they're saying they don't remember the Eidus is irrelevant. Why? Because Shema Chazrben. They already said their Haggadah Eidus when they wrote in the Shtar. Shema Chazrben. V'zeh she'amru einanu zeichrim. כדי לבטל השטר, וכאילו אמרו קטנים היינו, פסולי עדס היינו, שאינן המונים, היל ויזכאים השטר שלא ילפיהם. So the Rambam said before that Eidem Achsum al Ashtar k'mish nechker Eidusim bebezin, and therefore just like after nechker Eidusim bebezin, Eidem have no right to be chayzer, kivin shehigat shrei nechayzer u'magad, they can't say anything about the shtar, which will invalidate the shtar, or cause the shtar to be al atanai. So that is over here. Over here we have a shtar, and this shtar is a shtar mekuyim. And Lepel, these Eidim are coming along and say, we don't remember the Eidus. So the fact, if they don't remember the Eidus, so there's no Eidus. But Lepel, the fact that they're saying they don't remember the Eidus is looking like they're pulling back on the Haggadah Eidus. They already said the Haggadah Eidus. If the Taka don't remember the Eidus, looks like from the Rambam, if the Taka don't remember the Eidus, so Be'emes is no Eidus. Be'emes there's no Eidus. The reason why that's hard, it's really not so really easy to understand this Havanas Advarim over here. The Pashas Advarim before, we were learning in Hilchas Kiyum Ashtar. In Hilchas Kiyum Ashtar, the Pshat is, when the people are coming along and be Mekayim the Shtar themselves, they could only be Mekayim the Shtar if they remember the Eidus. Because they can't be Mekayim the Shtar, they have to be Mekayim the Eidus itself. And if they don't remember the Eidus, so then you can't be Mekayim the Shtar. You can't be Mekayim the Shtar without remembering the Eidus. But here it's coming out that the Emes, if they don't remember the Eidus that's written in the Shtar, they're not really Eidim. They're not really Eidim right now if they don't remember the Eidus. And if we believe them, even if we have Kiyum on the Shtar, I'm just saying that the Pashas, the way it comes out from the Rambam, if we'd really accept what they're saying, that they don't remember the Eidus, see, even if we would have a Kiyum on the Shtar, it also wouldn't be good. So from the Mashmois Advarim is that the Chsarn over here is not a Chsarn only in their Kiyum. The Chsarn is they have to remember the Eidus in the Shtar. However, we don't believe them, they don't remember. That's what the Rambam is saying. Aber im hoye Ksav Yodem yetzim okimach, eisho yedim shezeh Ksav Yodem, mekayim nes ashtar. Ein mashgichim al divreim, shomru ein anu zeichem Eidus zu. Why? So l'chura you could say because we don't need them to be mekayim the shtar. That only din is only when they're being mekayim the shtar, but we have a kiyum without them. So the Ram doesn't say that. The Ram says koshem chazru ben v'zeh she'amru einanu zechrim k'dei levatel hashtar. Ekilo amektanim ayinu psule eidus ayinu she'einin amonim heil yiskayim hashtar shlei alpiyim. So in other words, we don't accept what they're saying. That we don't remember the thing. The Eidus is because it's like a din of Chezer or Magid. But if we would have accepted, so that would take and validate the shtar. We don't have to bring the Eidus to ask them whether they remember the Eidus. So the rule is, when you can be Mekayim the shtar, even if the Eidim are saying they don't remember the Eidus, it does make a difference. Lepel, we accept the kiyum of the shtar, and the shtar is the shtar makuyim. If lepel, we need them to be mekayim the shtar, so then they could only be mekayim the shtar if they say that they remember the Eidus in the shtar. They remember that's zek savyodin. I remember the Eidus in the shtar, and that they could even say, even if they remember the Eidus in the shtar through seeing the Eidus that they signed or through someone reminding them. So then they could do that. Masha'inkin, if they don't remember the Eidus of a shtar, so then that shtar is not considered a shtar. And the Rambam said before, Harehu either kecheresh, that the person is like kecheresh, the person that's speaking in the shtar, or the shtar is kecheres. Achi yiskru Eidus. Halacha hey. Now this was the din of a shtar. Shtar bepashtus means you write a shtar to the malveh, to the person that's the tiveya, that's who has the shtar. Now, echad a case of Eidusi el shtar, either he wrote down the Eidus al shtar, or shenimtza kosev etzli b'pinkosi b'ksav yodi, he has that plainly hayed oisi olov b'yem plainly b'kach v'kach. So he makes a reminder, he has a little piece of paper by him, and he has a reminder that this person was plainly hayed oisi olov b'yem plainly b'kach v'kach. Is im zocher miatzma, if he remembers the episode, eyis kiru acherim v'niskar, also reminded him, he reminded himself. So then made that he can say Eidus about what it says in the Ksav, in this Ksav that he has al Pinkosei, or the Ksav that he wrote in the Shtar. Aber vim lav, if he doesn't remember, it is Asloid. Even though the Chur, it's his writing, and he wrote it down, so it's for sure true. I mean, he wrote it down for himself. So he says, She'ein zedema, elamisha amr le adam naman, plaini yesh le etza plaini kavlikach. If you don't know it, you know about it from someone else, which was an adam naman. V'heid, who sheyesh lezeh itzel zeh, sheyesh lezeh itzel zeh, v'hu ein yidem and adavar klum, elu pniho acher shama v'heid. So a person is not going to say Eidus about what he heard from someone else. He has to say Eidus on what he saw himself, what he knows himself. So just like a person can't say Eidus based on what he's heard from someone else, even if that person was a nishnaman, so al derezeh you can't say Eidus based on what you saw in your own ksaf. Even you have to say Eidus on based on what you yourself know. Not based on what you know because you saw in your ksav. Because seeing something in your ksav is al derech seeing something, hearing something from Eidechad. Just like when you hear from Eidechad, you can't say Eidus. You can't say Eidus based on what you saw in your own ksav.